Bay defense. This is the type of setup that we love for Jared Goff and for Jameson Williams because they're at home against a very bad secondary. Now, Williams been a little tough to trust. He only has 2 good games so far this season. One was last week where we saw a spike in targets, spike in receptions, a little bit different routes for him, and hopefully that continues because when he's at home, he typically performs at a high level. And for Jared Goff, look, give him credit. Last 2 games on the road, over 20 fantasy points in both of those matchups. But this is the setup where he tends to go off like we saw against the Bears a few weeks ago when he was the starter of the week. Could have an opportunity to hit those projected points, if not more. So we would love to see Jared Goff as a 25-plus point per game range. He is in the top 10 for all of us. I think at least for me, I think maybe a couple of you guys as well have him in the top 5. All right, Heath, let's take a look at your starts here. You like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in his matchup against the Cowboys.
Yeah, it was a disappointing game last week. He was facing the Bears, bad run defense. He's supposed to be awesome. Instead, he runs 17 times for 61 yards and fumbles again. Go right back to him. The Dallas Cowboys might be the new Bears in terms of bad run defenses. And this game has an over-under of 54.5, the highest number of the season so far. Lots of touchdown opportunities, even with the inefficient rushing last week. Bill, averaging 5.7 yards per carry, leads the NFL with a 65% success rate as a rusher.
So you have 2 Raiders on that list as well. Are you just hedging as a Chiefs guy, or you think they're actually going to play well against that defense?
I don't know that they're going to play well, but we've seen the Raiders lose 3 games by multiple scores this year. Geno Smith's averaging 36 pass attempts in those 3 games. They don't really want to throw that much, but they're 11.5-point underdogs in this game. A huge spread. Will be playing from behind in Kansas City. These are more PPR starts. I think there will be targets and receptions available for Tucker and Michael Mayer.
Tucker's somebody who could be good long-term, too, because Jacoby Myers, first of all, he's banged up. Second of all, once he heals, he might get traded out of town. That'll make Trey Tucker the number 1 wide receiver among the Raiders.
He already has been.
He already has been the number 1. That's a good point. But when Brock Bowers comes back, he'll be the number 1 target getter. Tucker could be number 2, and he's got some speed to him.
And beat the waiver wire, go get Jack Besh, who's going to play a lot more if Jacoby Myers is not there. All right, Dave, let's talk about your starts here. And the guy that you and I differ on is Sam Darnold. You actually think he's going to play well in this matchup against Houston?
There aren't a lot of quarterbacks that I love this week, but I think he's got some decent upside, and he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's played really well, 24 or more fantasy points in each of his past 2 games, 20-plus in 3 of his past 4. And he's taken on some tough defenses overall this year. He's been fine. Houston's been great. Their defense has been awesome. I think they're better against the run than the pass. But look who they've played. They held Cooper Rush to 1 point. They played Cam Ward. He had single digits. Trevor Lawrence had a bad game. Week 1, Matthew Stafford only threw 29 times. He had a bad game. Baker Mayfield found 23 points against them in week 2. I think Darnold will actually be one of the better quarterbacks that this Texans team has faced. And he's going to have to throw a lot because the Seahawks can't run the ball. Here's the cherry on top. He played against them last year. We were scared to start him last year. He scored 4 touchdowns, and they were all throws inside the 10. His team was able to move the chains and get him in position to score. He did well. He's not going to throw 4 touchdowns this time. I think he can get to a top 12, top 10 type finish this week. Safe floor, modest upside.
All right, you and I, Heath, are on the same side of this. Why are you against Darnold?
Well, the Texans have played some really bad quarterbacks, but even those bad quarterbacks they've faced have scored less than what they're scoring on a normal basis. This is a Texans team that if they can get the lead, they want to run the ball and make this a slow, low-scoring game. That's exactly what Seattle wants to do if they can get a lead, is run the ball, make it a low-scoring game. I just don't think there's very many points in this game. The Vegas numbers reflect that, and Darnold is going to need at least 2 touchdown passes to be a fantasy starter.
He'll get the 2.
I'll tell you the other part of this. You said 4 touchdowns. He threw for 141 yards in that game last year, so it wasn't like he was lighting up the scoreboard.
He didn't throw that much.
He just happened to find the end zone. I also think that based on while he was playing well prior to the last 2 games, he was hovering right around 20 fantasy points, with 2 of those under 20 fantasy points. So he can still play well in this game, which I think he will. I just don't think the fantasy production will be there. That's why I'm a little bit down.
Do you feel that way about a lot of quarterbacks this week, where they're kind of in that range of like, we talk about this every week, like 17 to 22 fantasy points. I don't know how many high upside guys
there's about 9 or 10 guys I think that could be 24 plus, and there's about 15 guys I think that'll be under that.
That's how I feel too. And I feel like Darnold is not in that first group of 9.
No.
He's in that second group, but I think he's got more upside than most of the guys in that second group.
That's the one word I don't see, though. I don't see the upside in this
Okay.
matchup. All right, let's talk about some sits for me. And Tetero McMillan headlining the list. He's been fantastic for the majority of the season so far. Despite what our podcast host Adam Azer said, the numbers have been good, just not great at times. Last week finally found the end zone. But this is a tough matchup against Sauce Gardner. Now, the thing to keep in mind about Gardner, he's made things tough on his opposing receivers, but they've still hovered in that 12 PPR point per game range. It's taken touchdowns, though, for some of those guys. Mike Evans did not score a touchdown against Sauce Gardner per se, but he did score against the Jets. We saw George Pickens with a touchdown against the Jets. Those wide receivers have been sort of minimal in their production, and I think if McMillan does not score again, we've seen a guy play 5 of 6 games without finding the end zone. I don't think he scores. I think he goes under the projected numbers that you see there from McMillan. So he's outside the top 24 for me, the number 30th wide receiver in my rankings.
Ooh.
Heath, let's take a look at your sits. And a quarterback that's been playing very well is Daniel Jones. You don't think he's going to do well against the Chargers, though?
You know, I've doubted Daniel Jones too much so far this season. He's been awesome at home, and he's proven me right on the road. And now he's back on the road against the Chargers defense that has been really good against quarterbacks so far this season. They gave up 27 fantasy points in week 1 to Patrick Mahomes. Since then, only one quarterback over 20 fantasy points. That was Jackson Dart. Who could stop him? Daniel Jones, I think that... Like, if you look at the way he's scoring fantasy points, it's almost like to get a really good week, you need 3 touchdowns. To get close to 20 fantasy points, you need 2 touchdowns. He also has some 1-touchdown games. Those have come on the road, and those have been the games that have been bad. I think we get another one of those this week.
And I think part of this is, I know we're not sitting Tyler Warren.
Right.
The Chargers are great against tight ends. So if you take away some of Tyler Warren's production, Josh Downs may not play. They have one of the best running backs in football right now. And while Michael Pittman may be good, maybe even great, that's not enough, I think, to say I'm loving Daniel Jones for this week. So I'm with you. I would try to set him as well.
And Khalil Mack could be back. I've moved him down. Each time I go to my rankings, I move him further and further down. It was easy for me to put Sam Darnold ahead of him. Matthew Stafford, too. Even without Puka Nacua, ahead of Daniel Jones for me this week.
All right, Dave, let's take a look at your sits. And another quarterback that you're a little bit concerned about is Bo Nix. I'm surprised by this one because the Giants have been sort of hit or miss against opposing quarterbacks. And when he's at home, he's been absolutely lights out throughout the start of his career, going back to last year into this season. He averages over 26 fantasy points per game in his building.
He's boom or bust, and it's really proved to be that way this year. He's got 2 games over 25 fantasy points, 3 under 16. The last quarterback to throw 2 touchdowns against the Giants was Dak Prescott. That was in week 2. I feel like the Giants defense is actually getting a little bit better. And I'm wondering if the Broncos, especially after last week, they try and get their run game going a little bit more. And that means fewer opportunities for Bo Nix to attack downfield. And I kind of like this Giants defense. You saw what they did against Philadelphia last week. I don't know if they travel and do as well against Bo Nix, but he's in that range of, what did you say, 15 quarterbacks that are in that 17 to 22 point expectation. He's in there.
Okay. I like Nix a little bit better than Darnold. Obviously, you like Darnold better than Nix. I think you probably come out Nix better than...
Yeah, I'd go Nix, Jones, Darnold amongst
Nix,
those 3.
Jones, Darnold. I think I'd go Nix, Jones, Darnold as well, but we'll see how these quarterbacks go. Again, it's an interesting week with some of the teams, on a bye. No Josh Allen, no Lamar Jackson.
It's going to be worse next week.
At the wide receiver position as well. All right, make sure you check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast. We're helping you dominate your fantasy leagues. We had the AFC home games covered on Thursday. We'll cover the NFC home games on Friday. Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. we get you started with the look ahead to the Week 7 slate, the inactives and actives that will be coming out. And then we'll be on the air 12 o'clock Eastern as well. So check out the Fantasy Football Today podcast on your audio and then on video on YouTube as well.